Well, we're into August now, and it's Monday afternoon, and it may be miserable outside, but we're going to go to Donegal, where it's probably even more miserable. Is it, Pat?
Yes.
Worse,
What
even worse than here.
Donegal was the armpit of Europe. It was always wet.
Oh, the mind boggles. The mind boggles. But it doesn't rain in people's. It doesn't rain in your. It doesn't rain in your armpit, does it?
Aye, but it's always wet.
Aye. You said something about this is the official. We're now officially in Ireland.
I didn't realise that, Jude. Apparently, the 1st of August in ancient Ireland was the start of autumn.
Oh, don't say
there's
that.
an autumnal feeling.
Oh, well, it is, but it's only temporary. It's going to get better, Pat. You got to.
I noticed you have on your Ganzi as well.
I know.
So you're not that warm either.
My soul Ganzi. Aye.
Yeah.
Well, you do feel a bit of a chill indeed in the air compared to. We've been spoiled, you see, Pat. We're stripping off right, left, and centre, and now suddenly we've got to pull on right, left, and centre.
Jude, what was it? This day last week? It was, or anyway, Saturday and Sunday, about 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're hitting record heights.
Oh yeah.
So it's unbelievable. Now it's raining quite heavily as I look out this window here.
Well, we shouldn't be complaining because we're going to run short of water, and it was always a sign of the global warming. So we should be glad that we're back to our dull normality and we've got plenty of water.
As somebody said to me the last day, if this is global warming, I can live with it. a very selfish but understandable position.
Everybody lives in their own wee patch. Okay, we're going to deal with a number of matters today, but the one I'd like to start with is this question of British passports. Now, you know that there was a sudden influx around Brexit of people from the north, and in fact, I think, did the former leader of the DUP recommend, Peter Robinson recommend that maybe his constituents should get Irish passports?
I should consider getting them anyway,
Aye. Well, anyway, here's some figures that I've come across recently. The share in 2015 of people applying for new passports consisted of 39% of them were people either from the UK from the Britain or Northern Ireland. That then counted in 2016, that accounted for 58%, and 2017 that accounted for 67%, and 2018 accounted for 70%. So it was obviously rising. But it fell in the first half of 2019 from nearly 58,000. It fell in the first half of 2019 to 27,400. That's a massive drop, over 53% drop. And he says it fell again to 24,000, just over 24,000 in the first half of this year, which is a further decline of 12%. Which you could interpret all sorts of ways. How would you interpret that, Pat?
I'll tell you, at that stage, most people who wanted an Irish passport had got one. I think it was 900,000 passports. I don't want to blind everybody with statistics, but I think it was 900,000 passports, if I remember correctly, issued in 2019. Yeah. And I think it was similar, so that was a hell of a lot of passports. But it's very simple. I would say it's directly related to Brexit. A lot of people simply said, if we want to get into Europe, and the last thing we need is a British passport if we're going to France or Spain for our holidays. If we travel on an Irish passport, that's a member of the EU. We can walk through the terminal security with our wee Irish passport and said, we're a member of the EU, and you just go through the EU passport control. If you are other, you have to queue up, and it's a lot more difficult. But you remember the famous during Brexit, it's not quite the same, but it's not dissimilar either. Remember during the Malvinas, the conflict in the Malvinas, all these BBC reporters who had British passports but had an Irish mother and Irish father suddenly applied for accreditation not accreditation, for a passport from the Irish government so they could go to Argentina. They weren't being allowed in under the British passports. So it's a passport of convenience for maybe a lot of people.
Even before Brexit, I remember talking to a producer in the BBC, and she was saying, well, I'm going to be traveling to somewhere, general area of the Middle East. And she says, I'm going to have an Irish passport with me. because it just solves a lot of things. If you've got a British passport, it tends to they make it sticky for you. It doesn't mean that they're going to ban you, but it makes it difficult. Whereas with Irish passport, the progress is smooth. So that would in part account for it, I think. Brexit, I guess, give that some acceleration. You're saying now that you think everybody who wants one has got it. I'm not sure I agree with that, because it's a very dramatic fall off. I mean, a drop in between 2 years of the first half, actually the first half of 2019 to go down by 53%. I think the reason for that is, I'm associated, have I got that right or wrong? It's with COVID. I mean, people are looking for passports with COVID.
Yeah, but in 2019, like I looked it up sometime back for another totally different reason, and I wrote it down somewhere. There was something like 900,000 passport issues, and on one day there were 5,000 or 6,000 applications on one day. But Jude, here I've got a story. Jude, you're talking about the Irish passport. It's a true story, and I'm not naming the man. He's dead now, but he was a well-known Derry footballer who emigrated to Australia, and apparently he was on a British flight going through at Melbourne Airport. And he was going through, and every person going through was stopped. He was waved on through, and he went about 5 yards and says, "Wait a minute, what's this about? Why has everybody else been stopped now?" So he went back to the guy at the desk, and he says, the immigration desk, he says, "Hey, look, you've got me flummoxed here, haven't you?" And I said, "I'm curious." He says, "Why did you stop everybody else and wave me through?" He says, "Sir, if you had a British passport, it would have stopped you as well. He had an Irish passport." And that's a true story, by the way. The man told me that himself.
Well, listen, here's a more fundamental question. Does a passport matter? I'll just give you an example. My brother was ordained in Rome in 1960, and the whole family went out, all 6 of us, I think. And when we went through the customs at the airport in Italy, the guy was looking at it and speaking in broken English. He was saying, "You brother, sister?" He said, "Yes, yes." "You British, she Irish?" Some of us had got British passports, some of us, and I'll tell you the truth, we didn't. We laughed at that. We didn't give a damn. That was the way I felt then. Nobody in our family cared whether we were British or Irish. It didn't matter. Whatever was handy. I don't think I feel that way now, and yet another part of me feels a passport doesn't really mean anything. So, do you have strong feelings in that, Pat?
Jude, you know something? I met quite a few people in Australia, and maybe it doesn't mean too much, but it means a lot to them. Like I even know second generation Australians who still travel on an Irish passport. It's a badge of identity for them, and they're very proud of it. A lot of Americans travel on it, and I know someone, Jude, see when you fail an exam, it's a big issue. See when you pass it half the time, it's not a big issue. Right? And I think the same with a passport. It's not a big issue for us. We're Irish. Like, what does it matter to us? Like, it's just a document. But to some other people, and it might sound naive and whatever, but it is a badge of identity for them. Oh, I travel on an Irish passport, and it means something to them.
It's a very interesting psychological one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sorry about this bloody noise. I'll really have to find the source because it sounds as if I got a pet dinosaur.
I think you got a poltergeist in your house, eh?
No, I didn't know poltergeist mid noise, but this sounds more like a baby I think Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Maureen's hanging around there saying, "Well, this is a wee noise."
I mean, that's what it is. That's what it is. But I think just to get back to the passports, I've got mixed feelings on it because on the one hand, I say it's like people standing for Hour in the Vein and insisting it be played at the Gaelic matches.
End of something or something.
Part of me says, yeah, that's nice. Another part of me says, well, that's a handy way of being patriotic. You just stand for Hour in the Vein. And the same with passports. Part of me says, as a load, what? It doesn't change you what passport you have in your hand, whether it's British or Irish. You are what you are. But on the other hand, I would be loath to apply for a British passport, and I'd even go to more bother to get an Irish one.
But you'd hold on. I'll back you up. There's two. I can speak from two. We were in a bar in Spain one time, and the barman was not very friendly.
Just once, Pat.
No, just once. Yes, yeah. You better believe it. Until he discovered we were Irish, and he changed 180 degrees. We were in another place, and I always remember the barman's name was Pepe. And he was very professional at the start, but very sort of, and changed totally again. And I said to the barman, the first original guy whose name was Martin, I said, Martin, what's this? He says, the English we not like. No, Jude, I'm not saying every English person's bad or every Irish person's good, but there is a thing that on the continent, because maybe they're football fans or past history or something, that being Irish actually is an advantage. And having that passport, of an Irish passport, helps ease passage into those other countries.
I think it combines with another thing, Pat, and that is there is a certain sentiment of anti-Englishness on the continent.
There is, and I've seen that.
I was taken on a tour of Barcelona FC. I forgot what's the name of their big stadium.
The Bernabeu.
Bernabeu, yeah. And we were going down, we'd finished and we were going down the lift, and there was this guy in with us. He obviously worked for the Bernabeu, and he says, you English? And we said, no, we're Irish. And he said, He looked around and he said, English people, big, and I'll not tell you what the last thing he said. Now, I'm sure he was partly joking, but it wasn't unsymptomatic of many people on the continent. But actually, we travel well. Our supporters travel well. The Irish have a good reputation, and sometimes I remember Brian Friel saying this one time, that you're sometimes sucked into playing up to this reputation as being
there's an element of truth in that.
So we need to watch ourselves, Pat. We'll have to be a bit gloomier than we've been up to now. Let's get a bit depressed here.
The old dark Irish.
Too much laughter on this program. Okay, let's go on to something really cheerful, and that is question of the hunger strikes. I'm not sure. Did you have a reason for bringing this up, Pat?
Yes, my friend Nigel. I can't name him. Nigel Cooks. Is right. Seeing it with the hunger strikes. Kevin Lynch's anniversary was yesterday. He was from Derry, and Nigel asked a very pertinent question, and I think it's a question a lot of people. Was it worth it? And to this day, for the families, I would say certainly not. I'm not even sure politically it was worth it. But seeing where Sinn Féin are today, maybe as a party, maybe as a movement, they may turn and say it was a terrible sacrifice, but it helped set us up on our way. I don't know, Jude. Very mixed feelings on it. There's a very poignant thing yesterday I read. I think it was Jared Lynch, Kevin Lynch's brother, said when Kevin might have the H blocks. The Undertaker said to his father, "Will we sort of do him up?" And he says, "No, leave him exactly as he came out of that hellhole." Jude, I was thinking, I'm a father. I have 3 sons. Can you imagine sitting and looking at your son in a coffin after he'd been on a hunger strike for 63 or whatever it was days, and you sit and watch the sacrifice he made, and you sort of say, it was it was a crossroads. No way Bloody Sunday was a crossroads moment. Well, the hunger strikes were most certainly a crossroads moment. Now, I think the families, it must have been hell on earth for them. But Jude, I really genuinely, and I'm not avoiding, I don't know whether that sacrifice was worth it or not.
Well, I go back to a couple of things in the past. Daniel O'Connell, for example, said that while he wanted Irish independence or freedom from England, he didn't think it was worth shedding one drop of blood for it. Now, the hunger strikers didn't shed anybody's blood, but they didn't even shed their own, but it was, it was their death. At one time during the Troubles, there was the councillors, because they wanted to stymie Sinn Féin, they said they had to take an oath of allegiance. And quite a few Sinn Féin councillors wouldn't do that. And I know that some Sinn Féin people said, "Don't be stupid. Take the oath, because if you don't take the oath, you're essentially saying, I'm sympathetic to IRA, and you're setting yourself up for a jail term." So they said, don't take the oath. And the same thing applied to early on in the day of the Troubles, where they used to recognize the court. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
The court. I mean, that was like saying, I'm guilty. So again, if you're talking about being truthful, if you're in court and you're asked, how do you plead? You'd be right easy to say, I plead guilty.
Yeah.
a very good.
So the minute you say I'm refusing to recognise your court, so they're automatically you're then there, right? So you were yeah.
So of course, the same thing now. Sinn Féin would say that in Westminster, they would point the finger at the SDLP and say, we're not going to take an oath of allegiance to the English Queen. But they say that's principle. I'm not 100% sure about that, because it's not principle in the councils, clearly, it's tactics. So, at what point does it change? But anyway, the hunger strikers were wanted to make a very crucial point, as they saw it, and that was that they weren't criminals. And that's what they, the British press, the British media, the British government wanted to. That's what they preached to the world.
Yeah,
and they did it fairly effectively too. They were successful.
Absolutely, they have a
successful in the South, successful
propaganda machine. Yeah.
So these guys were saying, "Look, we're not criminals. We're not criminals. We didn't engage in this violence just for criminal reasons. We did it for reasons that Irishmen have done for years and years. And they fasted to death. The question then would be, was that the only way they could have done it? Is that the only way they could have made their point? Because they did make their point. They did, in fact, people's attention was drawn to the distinction between the two things.
Yeah.
And it was very hard after that to argue these are just a bunch of gunmen, corner boys, etc. Because you don't have guys who are corner boys or criminals fasting themselves to death. So they were successful to that extent. It must have taken enormous courage. But I'd be like you, Pat. If it came down to me and my own children, oh God. Well, first of all, I wouldn't be able to do it.
No.
To see my child do it would be awful.
It's even worse. Doing it yourself would be bad, Jude, but to see your child doing it, it must tear the heart out of you. But Jude, I remember as a young editor, I remember a couple of reporters did stories. One of them went up to see the family of Mickey Devine in Derry. I think Mickey might have been a third or fourth.
No, he was
Patsy
the last. O'Hara
was another. Was he the last? I can't remember. What he was last. Yeah. And they said, prior to his death, the screws deliberately made it as they brought in a body bag and left it sitting beside his bed so he could see it, and so on. And they used to bring food and hot steaming food and stuff like that. To make it, and I always thought, if there's a place in hell that's hot enough for people would do something like that, whether you like them or dislike, these people were people of principle. And you said something I totally and utterly agree with. See, when for years people tried to make out, these are just terrorists and gunmen and all the rest, right? If you believe in a cause, would you willingly die for it? These people weren't terrorists or gunmen. They were fighting for something that they believed was bigger than themselves. Whether you agree or disagree is a total irrelevance. They believed it. They were not criminals. None of them had criminal records beforehand. It was a political identity, whatever thing that you want to call that, a right to be free and democratic in your own country.
Yeah. I look at, anytime I see Lawrence McKeown on TV, Lawrence McKeown from down in somewhere, he was in hunger strike for a huge number of days. He was in a coma, unconscious, in fact.
Him and McCartney and Derry the same.
And his parents called it off. And every time I see him, I'm glad that happened. I think they promised they wouldn't, but they did. Yeah. Now there were some parents who made the promise and they kept it. You don't know what. It's very hard to say. Was that very courageous of them, or was that somehow unnatural?
I would hate to be sitting on the dark of night with their thoughts, wouldn't you?
Oh, terrible. But yet again, you see, a lot of people are very proud of their sons.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you had a son now, I'm not saying at the time, but I'm saying now, if you had had a son on the hunger strike and died in hunger strike back then, would you not be pretty proud of him?
Absolutely, Jude. Look, you see, and they did achieve something. See, Thatcher described them, and I remember it very clearly. Jude, they put out this thing to all the British embassies across the world, fact sheets about the hunger strikers, and tried to say, and it actually backfired on them big time. Here were these people trying to smear the hunger strikers, and then people started, these guys are political people. they're starving themselves to death to make a political point because that's the last weapon they have.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually backfired. And I think that original fact sheet, they were all withdrawn. I think there was Humphrey Atkins was the Home Secretary or the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland when that happened. It was a real smear stuff and it didn't work. So Jude, maybe that changed stuff for maybe the Republican movement will turn around today and say, yeah, we paid a terrible price for it, but look at the status they gave, because that was the end of this sort of, they're just gunmen and terrorists.
It also opened the door to something terribly important. And that was the Republicans running for public office, running
Absolutely
for TDs, because they did that. They thought that would save Bobby Sands' life, because Thatcher would never allow an MP to die, but of course she did. And what's more, the South, the Dáil allowed their TDs to die. But they suddenly realized this is a strategy that we could use, and built on that. And we have the situation today where they're easily the biggest party, not just North, but right throughout
the
But I often think that it's the one thing, and you'll find an awful lot of talk about it and jokes made about it. You'll find among unionists or loyalists, not sure about loyalists, but some people who really detested the IRA and the Republicans, who will make jokes about it and say, well, they killed themselves, they killed that big deal. I think that comes out of the fact that this is such a clear self-sacrificial act.
And
it's not hurting anybody.
It cannot be dismissed.
Not doing anybody any harm. They're not killing anybody or injuring anybody else at all. It's also a terribly, terribly lingering death. You really have to have an astonishing result. So it's the one act or the one series of acts during the Troubles that shines out clearly and strongly. And as a result, I think there's some people among the unions who really detest it and would like to hear a story that Sinn Féin were made an offer and then they let them die.
Jude, in that book, I think Say Nothing is written by the American guy. It's a very, very good book, by the way. It's excellent. But there's all sorts of allegations and claims made that various people were offered this and that and the other, and then Adams had overruled it and all that. Now it's one-sided, but having said that, you would love to know, is there a definitive inside story of what the politics of all that was? But the bottom line of it, Jude, here's a question. I'll put it in you. Do you believe it was worth it?
Well, the sight, when I look at that picture of Kevin Lynch, and I am told that he was 25. He also was a bit like sort of a local hero. He was a captain of the hurling team that won some under 17 or something at Croke Park. He was just obviously a very sort of charismatic figure. And just think of that young life just cut dead short. Very, very hard.
Sure, I didn't know the guy, but apparently Patsy O'Hara had film star looks and the bloom of youth. Well, look at that.
It's shocking. I would say, if you look at it just by itself, I hate the notion of young life being cut off. I think life is a wonderful gift, and to cut it off seems a terrible thing.
But Jude, it would be even because we're not going to solve it, but there's just to talk about, isn't it amazing the history we have lived through in regard to the Troubles in the North? Like where else in the world would we be talking about something that 10 people starved themselves to death?
But again, I think it's the reason there's so many conspiracy theories around it. And so many people are saying, "Oh well, they Sinn Féin knew," and so on, and they. I think it's because it's such an absolutely clean, heroic act that they concentrate.
After you throw a smear in just to make sure that.
If my son, I probably wouldn't have agreed to it, but I'd have to say if he had done that, I would certainly admire his courage, which I wouldn't have. Okay, speaking of courage, what about viewing the Olympics? And I'm going to tell you now, Pat, most of the Olympics was a load of garbage this year.
It's bad. There's no atmosphere, and I've got it. Like an Italian one in the 100 meters. For some reason.
What was that about? And it was a big bird guy too.
Where are the Jamaicans? Where are the Americans and all the rest? But no, Jude, I didn't write down her name because I can't remember her name. Yesterday, I think her name was Saunders. She
Not Jennifer
She
Saunders.
she won the silver medal in the shot put, and on the podium she crossed her arms, and somebody says, "What was that about?" And she says, "It's basically for the oppressed people of the world. It's an X, marks an X. It's in support of them." Now the IOC has they have a very clear rule. It states there should be no political protests on the podium. Thomas Bach, I think is the name of the president of the IOC, he says, look, he says there are many political things out there and absolutely worthy causes. But basically, if we go down this road and everybody starts doing their own thing on a podium, he says it'll become totally politicized. Now, what can happen is they could strip her of her medal, they could ban her from the Olympics, they could do, but nobody, Jude, wants. They're all basic. I'll use the term. They're all shitting themselves because they don't know what to do about this. And you see, remember in 1968, there were two guys, I've remembered as well, and I was only a wee fella, Tommy Smith, and I think it was John Carlos, I think was his name. And they put up the Black Power salute to protest about the black people in America. They were banned and they never represented America again. White America took it really bad. But Jude, that was grand then. But see what happened, the whole thing changed. And what was it, about 2016, when the Black Lives Matter thing and what do you call him, the American footballer took the knee. And I remember Trump basically tried to say that he actually called him a bastard on this bastard, disrespecting our flag. But it grew and it grew and it grew. Now, even in the last term of the Premier League, before every match, they took a knee for a couple of seconds. But by the way, Jude, we, the Irish, have a proud record. The first person ever to do a protest at the Olympic Games was a guy called Peter O'Connor. I think it was in 1906 in Greece. Ireland didn't have an Olympic committee in 1906, and he discovered he was entered as a British athlete, and he scaled the pole, got an Irish flag, walked around with it, and put it, and refused to stand under the. And apparently on the flag was written "Erin go Bra," no Ireland flag. So and that was the first ever protest. Oh, so that was us Irish.
Well, do you approve? I think. Do you approve of them then? Do you think the people should be allowed to protest if they wish? Whether
as long as they don't preach hate, Jude, I don't care.
Yeah, I would kind of agree.
I totally support Black Lives Matter. I support taking a knee. And if somebody wants, like the Black Power, Jesus, Jude, what do you call it? They weren't sort of saying go shoot people, just sort of saying we're black people and we're standing in solidarity with our brothers.
Well, what about I'm trying to remember now, because I know in professional football they've got all sorts of stuff, and Gaelic football too. Yeah. They have all sorts of advertising on their shirt.
Yeah.
Do any of the athletes, I'm trying to remember, do any of the athletes have any advertising on their shirts in the Olympic Games?
I'm not sure. No, well, they have Nike, obviously, and Adidas and all that sort of stuff, and I'm sure they're getting paid for it. Yeah. So like they've been now. There wasn't an English, or he was a Muslim footballer, but can't remember, but 5-7 years ago, I think it was Betfair or something, and he refused to wear it as a moral thing. He said that wasn't, and I agreed with him totally as well.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that if it, certainly commercialism and capitalism have found its way into sport. So I think maybe the odd person with a political causes should be given a pass on that as well. I think there are more basic questions than this. For example, the whole idea of the Olympic Games is the elite athletes. I mean, this is the best athletes. Huge expenses put into them, both in terms of training and then funding them to go to the games. The idea is, or the claim was, certainly in London, when they were held in London, the idea was that a lot of this excitement and achievement and the fact that it was being held in London meant that you would have trickled down to the local level, and that it would a resurgence of interest in the whole thing with young people. In fact, that didn't happen at all. So you're left with a question: is it good to push the money in and get these wonderful athletes, the best of the best, or would you be better putting them in at local level and just have people be mediocre or good at it or enjoying themselves, but much more widespread in the country? I have a strong temptation, certainly after these Olympic Games, for saying, keep it local.
Yeah, I don't know, but Jude, I'm not sure. Like the whole Brits seem to be doing reasonably well at these Olympics.
Oh,
And there's a lot of
yeah.
there are a lot of strong stuff like Petey, the swimmers won again, and
Yeah.
yesterday morning the gymnasts won, and they've done. I watched I sat up there about 1 o'clock to the mixed marathon relay, or whatever the hell they call it these days. You know, our triathlon relay, and it was very good. So I'm not quite sure I agree with you that there's no trickle down. There seems to be a resurgence, like in the whole sailing and bicycle cycling stuff. The Brits have come from way behind to world leaders. So I'm not sure I agree totally with your observation.
I thought I saw from some figures where they were saying they were really disappointed. They had this notion around London that the fact that the stadium there would make huge difference. But they said,
well, I know I just saw the last day. I think are they in fourth or someone in the middle table?
Oh, they're doing. They did extremely well. Did extremely well. That what annoys me, Pat, is people who are athletes and they win, and they say, I'm so happy. And I want to, all you young people out there, if you have a goal, go for it. Go for it. You can do anything you want if you just set your mind to it and discipline. What a load of rubbish.
Bollocks.
What a load of rubbish.
Jude, like, if you're my size, you're never going to win the Olympic marathon. You know, like Jude, somebody said to me one time, you know, I could train all day, but I am not a 6'3", 9 stone Ethiopian. A white European, heavy built, is never going to. So this thing, you can do whatever you want. You know, like I'm never going to be a jockey either. You know, it's not going to happen. So there's, you know, this sort of thing. You know, I understand what they mean and they mean well, but let's be honest. Like, I remember an old teacher one time. He says, "Hey, look," he says, "I believe in competition," and I says, "Why?" He says, "Pat, look at like this." He says, "I might fancy that girl over there, and so might you." But he says, if you're better looking than me and whatever, he says, you'll fancy you. So right in there, he says, there's your first lesson in life. People choose and there's competition.
Let's keep the grubby sex out of it, Pat.
No, but his point was, everything in life, his point was the only way things grow is competition. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, I don't know either. Mind you, you see, if you take China as a communist country was going really not very far. When they introduced capitalism, and competition, the economy just took off. So
aren't they even top of the Olympics table at the minute, Jude?
Probably are. They are,
as far as I know. Yeah.
Well, there's that many of them, I suppose, they're bound to be. But the other thing is, if people say, "Oh, anybody can do it," you know, but they ignore the fact that behind them are the very fact that they've won. Means there's a whole string of people who didn't win at the Olympic Games.
Absolutely.
So where's their dream? And then you
even today, about 10 different people set national records, and they didn't even qualify for the semi-finals.
Did you see any of the interviews with some of the people who lost? Things. Remember that young guy that made the leap of joy in the ring when he realized he'd won a bronze medal at least. And then he could go to the next round. And I mean, that guy was heartbroken. And there was others who were weeping openly. So, I mean, you've got to, once you get into competition, you better accept the fact that there's a good chance, there's a bigger chance that you'll be absolutely bloody miserable.
There was a girl
4 years of your life working like a dog, training. That's all gone.
I think she's called Phil Healy, I think. And I think she set an Irish record, and she didn't even. She wasn't. She not being ironic, but she wasn't even at the races. Have you know what I mean?
What about the idea of? See, I have got a thing about this, Pat, and I think we've talked about it just very briefly, and we'll finish this up. What about the idea that we do it under the banner of different countries? I mean,
what do you mean?
Well, you know, in the opening ceremonies, everybody comes in under their own flag. This is part of the Irish team. When they're swimmers, they've got the United States stars and stripes on their swim cap and all. So, and we say the Irish rowers won that. Oh, fantastic! They won the gold. But should they? I mean, why could they not just go in and compete as athletes and never mind where they're from? Wouldn't that make more sense? Do we have to always make it down to nationalism?
Listen, Collins, come on, that's very utopian.
Not utopian at all. You could change it if you wanted to.
It's utopian. Like the whole idea, I keep saying I remember reading an article, and it's a very long time ago, it was only probably a secondary school, that sport and today's world has replaced war, that these people are our representative, our bravest and our best, And in other words, Cook Cullen went out to represent us. Well, now it's whoever wearing a green vest in the marathon or whatever, and that's what it's all. That's where it's, hey, Jude, it's all this sort of. Jude Collins was run for, as an athlete out in the Olympic Games, and nobody knew where he's from. It wouldn't be half as under. Oh, but wait a minute, that's that Irish fella Collins. Oh, geez, we must support him. That's how it works. It's identity, Jude.
Is Afghanistan in the Olympic Games?
Well, it's probably A, so it probably is. There's a couple of.
You're saying that the sport replaces warfare. I mean,
yeah,
Afghanistan is not a good example.
No, it's not. But hey, hold on. There was a girl from Venezuela there. I think she won our country's first, and there was somebody, I think, a shooting medal from San Marino. I think the population of San Marino is 32,000. It's the smallest country ever to win a medal at the Olympics. So there are good things too.
Well, I have mixed feelings. I must say, I mean, I was delighted when the rowers really won it clean. They didn't know silver; they just got gold, and I said, "Yeah." But I am so worn down by the Brits that I'm not sure.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by so
I'm worn down by Team UBGB at Northern Ireland? Oh God! Yeah. If I hear that again, I go mad. And what do you call that woman that was the presenter? And the way they go on, and then they go to play it again, and play it again.
It's not Helen Robinson, and she died. I can't remember. I know the one, the Scottish girl that's on BBC. Yeah.
No.
And then there's Gabby Logan as well.
Oh, Gabby Logan. Well, I don't think she's much of a presenter at all. But anyway, they just go on and on. I suppose if it was Irish, I would be saying great. I'll tell you something that really gets me cheesed off. I can't get the Olympics from RTE. Well, I know we've talked about this, but that really gets me down. I don't know how they get away with that. If you're talking about nationalism, fix that. Fix that before you start talking about all the wonderful athletes we have.
Jude, but I'm repeating it myself. I think that's actually something to do with Brexit and data protection and whatever else. It only started. You should have been able to get RT up until about the 1st of January this year, shouldn't you?
Well, no, actually, before that, quite frequently there'd be an international game featuring the Republic of Ireland, and I couldn't get that on RTE, even though it was broadcast there, because it was on Sky as well.
Yeah, Sky.
But what kind of lily-livered, useless people are they on RTE that they would come to that where they would say, "Oh no, we'll do the hell with those guys. If they haven't got Sky, they're not going to get seeing it." I think that's pathetic. I really.
But hold on, Dr. Collins, my boy. The Sky paid the what do you call it, FIFA for the rights to the game, and it's nothing to do with RTE.
Are you saying the RTE are not in a position to send out cameras out there and broadcast?
No, it's not. They're not in a position. Sky's got the contract to broadcast it, and that's why you pay them 70 quid a month to watch Sky.
So FIFA decides who's going to.
Yeah, the big boys decide, and who gets the contracts. Sure, Manchester United, or not Manchester United. That's Sky paid Premier League billions to get the Premier League. And it's worth a fortune. They made 500 million profit or something last year.
Did they spend millions to get the GAA games?
Absolutely. They spent.
They
spent serious money buying the rights from the GAA. That's what the big controversy was about 2 or 3 years ago.
So except you got Sky, you wouldn't see the games.
Absolutely.
Aye. Do you approve?
It's pure commercialism.
Do you think good idea or a bad idea?
I think it's a terrible idea. I really, I think anything that's of a national interest, be it All Ireland final, horse racing, anything that's of an interest to the people should be free to air. It shouldn't be the exclusive right of viewing right of those with deep pockets.
I wish they also would take it the reverse. That anything that wasn't of interest to the people of Ireland, they shouldn't put it out in RTE, because they put out a lot that it cannot possibly be of interest to any decent person. Okay, and on that note,
all the best, Jude.
On that note, thank you, Pat.